So, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good day to all the good people. We are starting our 15th bi-weekly that is devoted to the life and rebuilding and agricultural industry of Ukraine, as well as battlefields update. So today we are going to be quite short because I'm currently broadcasting from our office next to Kiev, and it is the just the sirens that have just sounded. So there might be some cut-offs in the connection. However, we keep on broadcasting and updating on Ukrainian agricultural fields news and battlefields news whenever we can, and we will do our best not to stop doing it. So right now I am starting the presentation, and hopefully you will be able to see it. I would like to first of all point out that since today's session, we are not going to be stressing that much on invitation of people for the live. If you are willing, please welcome. However, instead, we will try to focus on the recorded version for your comfort and for your ability to visit it later when you have an opportunity. So let's proceed. World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine. This is the charitable project that was started by the Trebilite Agro team. And since the 6th of April, we have been trying to, first of all, raise awareness about the difficulties that small Ukrainian farms and individual farmers they have, what difficulties they are running through, and secondly, to raise awareness, to raise some funds in order to help rebuild the people who are most in need. And that's the main goal for our program. We are pre-selecting the people who suffered in the regions that have been or had been occupied by Russians. Right now, we are working in Kiev Oblast, north of Kiev, but in the future, shortly, we will proceed to Kharkiv and to Kherson Oblast, hopefully, very much hopefully, because this is the area that is being very rapidly liberated by Ukrainian army, and unfortunately, the very same atrocities that were happening in Izium, in Balaklia, in Bucha, Irpin are being found in those regions. So these people, they need our help, and we continue doing our best. What do we do for them? First of all, we rebuild their houses so that they have roof over their head. Secondly, we help rebuild their production capacities, the farms, the storage facilities, the barns, and so on, in order for them to be able to earn their living and to continue producing food. And thirdly and fourthly, we are trying to help repurchase them, their equipment and their farm animals. Unfortunately, when I returned to Kyiv, it was 2 weeks ago, I visited myself the 3 aid recipients that we have been working with, and I was astonished by, first of all, how resilient these people are, and secondly, how much damage it really was made to their farms. For example, Allah, the lady who was first that we decided to help, they are very good in construction their own house, their own barns, and so on, and they lost literally everything. I saw a pile of rusty iron that used to be their tractor, their cultivator, their small sprayer. So all this stuff is not only not able to do its work, it's just not even good for repairment. It's totally wrecked, as well as their house and as their barn. So I have some photos and videos which I will show you later. There is a lot of work to do. In order to be most transparent and in order to be literally non-corruption or corruption-free program, because this is critical. Reputation is of the utmost importance. That's our policy. So we have invited the reputable people from all over the world who have to do, who run their business in agricultural industry, who know us and who support us and help us make the right decisions. In other words, no penny is spent without their approval. And of course, those companies who would like to donate a substantial amount of money or help us raise more donations by any other means, they can assign their own ambassador in order to be able to control how their money is spent and to influence the decisions. Two important principles: we never give off cash. Instead, we provide the services, and we never upgrade, because if the person has earned for living, has earned to have this tractor or this house or this barn, they know how to run it, how to manage it, and they are most efficient with this equipment. So how to help? First of all, we collect donations to our partner, the charity, the non-governmental organization LifeNets. They have the highest score, 100 out of 100, and they are collecting the money for us from the United States. Other than that, you can find more details on our website, how to transfer the money to our direct NGO in Ukraine, which is called Association of Veterans in Agribusiness. So if you donate at least $200, you can get benefits. We always try to pay back. This is what Ukrainians are like. We don't like to be presented things, but instead we return our favors. So what we do in return as the company, as Travelite, first of all, we share our knowledge that we have collected thanks to the cooperation with reputable scientists and experts throughout the world. So this is the online agro school that we allow access to for as long as the person needs for free. After the $200 was at least $200 was donated towards the Waru needs. And of course, we invite to travel, and traveling can be to any country in any future travel. For example, in December, we are organizing a tour to New Zealand. We already have 6 participants, 2 from Germany, 4 from United States, and we still have space. It's December 3rd and December 16th. Now let's shift to, of course, very important. We are looking for the outreach. As I mentioned, we are trying to raise awareness about the troubles that these small farmers are coming through in Ukraine. Therefore, any interview, any meeting with decision makers of corporations in agriculture, any service companies that can host me via online, Zoom, or physically for the presentation, I'm open for this, for any of those opportunities. So now the team. This is our team on Ukrainian side who are working to make everything happen. First of all, the bi-weekly updates. Secondly, the actual rebuilding and reconstruction of those facilities. So the battlefields updates. Ukraine has first claimed that we have had nothing to do with the damage to the Kerch Strait Bridge. There are a lot of rumors that it is inside the Russian Federation conflict between their departments or special services, and they try to make it look like it is Ukraine. After that, they have done a number of serious attacks towards Ukraine, and it coincided that the new general was assigned to run this war in Ukraine, and he is specialist in air forces. So they have purchased a couple of thousands, they say 700 first, and then more kamikaze drones from Iran. Those are, I've seen them myself, I've heard them flying over my roof of my house just 4 or 5 days ago. It's very noisy, flying very low, And the funny thing, if there is anything funny here, that Ukrainians have started, after this couple of attacks by kamikaze drones, have started to publish questions in the social media. How do we and can we shoot them down? So the officials needed to come out to the publicity, to the people, and say, you don't need to shoot them down because you can make it worse. So there was such a meme or like a funny picture that the first day that the war started, officials were saying, please stay calm, do not panic, stay safe. Now they issued another message. Please do not attack the kamikaze drones and do not attempt to land them. So this is how Ukraine evolves, and this is this speaks a lot for the future of this whole war. However, these drones are really making a lot of trouble. They decided, Russia, they decided to attack the infrastructure and the critical infrastructure. What comes into the list of critical infrastructure? First of all, it is electricity, because winter is coming. Electricity is running the pumps of the water supply, of gas supply. It lights up the fire. It makes sure there is connection and internet, and there is communication. So they are shooting the hubs of electricity. And currently, unfortunately, although 85%, over 85% of the drones are already being shut down by our military, still these 15%, they caused a lot of troubles, and we lost about 35% of Ukrainian electrical power supply, and it's growing, unfortunately. Critical number would be half. If we lose half of our electricity, then it might be a catastrophe for the country. Yesterday, I was meeting with the person who is one of the deputies in our Supreme Council, Verkhovna Rada, and he knows the information about Ladizhin. This is one of these hubs for electrical supply and separation. And he said to me that on October 10th, this is when everything started to happen in terms of bombing. They destroyed one of the very important nodes or like hubs of this electrical network. So 1 week later, when it was rebuilt and almost they were going, the next day they were going to start it again, a new missile came and destroyed it again. So there is a lot of work for our special internal services in finding the people who supply information to the occupants, to Russians. So October 10, like I mentioned, 84 missiles and 24 unmanned aerial vehicles were used in one day. And out of 84 plus 24, it is 108. 56 targets were tackled. Over a half was landed. The other half, unfortunately, arrived to its to its targets. Since October 10, a lot of countries claimed they are supplying air defense system to us. And yesterday, I heard that a lot of the network, the upgraded network of air defense, has been set up and opened in all the important locations in Ukraine. However, there is no way we can make it 100%, and that's 400 strikes. This is the number starting from October 10th. We've been sitting in the basements, me and my family and my neighbors, for quite a while during these days. And like I said, right now we still are in the phase of sirens of attack. So my family is staying in the shelter while I'm here. This really influences the life of Ukrainians, but we still continue doing what we do. And it caused a lot of blackouts in energy and electricity, so we have shifted to a scheduled time when we get electricity, because like minimum 30%, but after yesterday's attack, 35, they said 35% of electrical stations have been destroyed. Kyiv was hit on the 10th of October, first time after quite a long time, after many months, and they landed into the places in the traffic in the rush hour where there was maximum traffic. They landed and on the few squares and killed many people. So this was really a huge attack that has never happened since the beginning of the war, except 24th of February. October 17, there was another attack, and this building that you can see on the left, unfortunately, I myself saw it yesterday. I was driving past it. It is located in front of an important power generating station. Russians missed, as it happens in most of the cases, and instead they hit the civilian building. People were killed, 5 people, especially the sad was to hear that a young couple, 30 years old, with a pregnant woman, was found, they were dead in the bed, hugging one another. So Russia continues in the cities like Zaporizhia, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv. They continue to shell all the residential areas, and they do not even hide it in their media. They are claiming that they are shelling all the objects, they are shelling civilians, and it is, of course, the proof of their terrorism as their tactics. They try to scare the civilian people so that military would give up. But instead, what they reach, especially after October 10, Ukrainians were united even more. They started donating money towards the purchase of the same drones from other countries, and making our air defense system more stronger. So the liberation, the good news here, whatever is happening in the rest of the area, the soldiers in the south, Kherson Oblast, are moving further, and over the last 10 days, they have liberated 75 settlements. So totally 551 settlement was liberated in Kharkiv Oblast, which is considered to be totally liberated, all the oblast, all the region, and 75, maybe a little more, around 100 already in Kherson Oblast. This is the south. Recently, 2 days ago, Russia started to post the news that they expect Ukrainian armed forces to be attacking, shelling, and totally destroying the city. Therefore, they want the people to be safe, again, quote, which means the opposite, and they are evacuating or forcing people to leave towards Russian territory. Instead, they are closing the city, and they are mining the approaches to the city, and as well as the hydropower station, that if it is exploded, the dam, it will sunken the half of Kherson and a lot of areas. It is like dozens of towns in the area in the oblast, and they have already mined it. Now they are they mined it months ago at the beginning of the war. Now they are just adding up more explosives there. Our officials said that they are ready for any scenario, because there are a couple that are considered using chemical weapon, using nuclear weapon, using these explosives and terroristic acts against the civilians in Kherson Oblast, just to stop Ukrainian moving forward in that region. Meanwhile, the number of people who died on the Russian side, I'm still calling them people, but they act in most cases worse than any animal, because that's the reason why we call them in Ukraine orcs. The atrocities that we have seen in the towns in Kherson, in Kiev Oblast, and now we are seeing it in in Kharkiv and Kiev Oblast, and now we're seeing it in Kherson. They are terrible. So 66,000 and a half of dead Russian soldiers. You can imagine how many of them are wounded or missing. Good news is that recently Russians are more willing or eager to exchange their prisoners of the war. This was the third successful exchange since the October started. 108 women were freed 2 days ago, 3 days ago actually, and they are both from Azovstal. They are military and civilians. So this time women. A couple of days before, there was a party of exchange of men, and of course, unfortunately, a lot of bodies were also delivered, of Ukrainian soldiers were delivered to Ukraine. For example, this is one of the ladies, and when she was taken as a prisoner of the war at the beginning of the war, she was with her daughter. The daughter was allowed to leave to Ukraine, and she was taken as the prisoner. So they were separated, and only right now, it was in May, that they got separated, and now they reunited. European Parliament voted to recognize Russia as a state that sponsors terrorism. Actually, all the proof has been collected that Russia is a terrorist state. However, there are political consequences that will fall upon Russia and a lot of other countries after admitting or recognizing them as the terrorist state. That's why the countries in the West are not in a rush to recognize them. So probably most of all because they lose control over what's happening in Russia. And majority of the new institutions are moving towards admitting Russia as the terrorist state. European Parliament will be voting for it on the 24th session of November session. Mobilization in Russia. It caused a lot of problems because the question arises in the minds of many people: what happened with the professional army if they need their 200,000 people that are not prepared for the war? And especially a lot of unrest happened when already hundreds of them do not answer the calls, and as a result, they are killed in Ukraine. The things that soldiers tell from the Bakhmut direction, this is more of a southeast direction. This is critical for Russia, and they are sending all their weapons and people and ammunition. That Ukrainians see the location of Russian soldiers freshly arrived. They shell it with artillery. Those die. Then the next day, the bodies are still there, but new soldiers are again at the same place. Then when it's too many of the bodies, they just push them to their wrecks and leave it like this. So they don't care, and it has been proven by many stories that they don't care about their comrades. They leave it and don't even help them with in cases that they are still alive and they need medical assistance, and instead they just leave them to die. Now we are approaching the agricultural topic, and a very important part here is the grain agreement or grain corridor. It has been working for almost 2 months, and it will be working until November 19th. Sorry, but Russia looks like they don't want to continue it because they haven't thought it would be, they didn't think it would be so successful, and now they are finding reasons not to fulfill it. not to prolong it. They are program in blackmailing the world with food supply does not work when this corridor is working, and they are finding ways how to stop it. So the fact that United Nations started to investigate the supply of these kamikaze and already the battle drones to Russia, Russia reacted immediately. It means that it is something very important for them. So the reaction from their officials came immediately, and they said, if you proceed with this investigation, we will proceed with reconsidering this treaty for the period after November 19th. So it means that that United Nations is on the right way. Meanwhile, these are the numbers of the grain corridor: 43 ships that exported almost 1 million tons, a little bit less, of agricultural products only within 1 week. And here you can see the breakdown. It's in Ukrainian, but let me explain. So October 10, October 16, 7 days, 43 ships, a little less than previously, like 12% less in 1 week, and 860,000 tons was exported. That's within 1 week. So let me translate the crops. This is here purple, soybeans, that's canola, orange, light orange, this is sunflower meal, sunflower oil is blue, light blue is wheat, corn is this sea color, and all the rest of the crops are 51,000 tons exported. This is within 1 week. Where was it exported? 90% of the produce went to Africa, which results in 164,000 tons. 29% went to Europe, almost 50,000 tons, and 52% went to Asia. Now, the total exported amount of goods, and by the way, this corridor is important not only for the economy, not only for the countries that get this produce, but it is important for the Ukrainian big corporations, because some of them, and I will talk a little later about how each of the agricultural player is feeling right now in terms of economical stability. So the companies, it was very profitable to export grain out from Ukraine, and a lot of companies made it their major or main business. Therefore, right now, it was at the beginning of the war, it was not possible, and they started to lose money quicker than the other companies. Therefore, the holdings, like for example, Kernel, whose ship was first to be delivering through this corridor, they it was like a saving hand for them. So 350 ships were gone through this corridor and exported almost 8 million metric tons. Let me remind you that before the war, we were able to export 5.5 million metric tons in 1 month. Here we are talking about almost 8 within 2 months. Let's make it 2 months. So here are again the crops. Canola over here, sunflower, very few, because mainly we would prefer to process it, having 70 processing facilities. Soybeans, barley, this is corn, 50%, half of all the volume is corn. Wheat is the second, 34%, and like I said, canola here. So countries that imported Ukrainian commodities through grain corridor: Spain, Turkey, Italy, Egypt, Netherlands, Romania, Germany, China, Bangladesh, North Korea, Indonesia, Tunisia, Israel, Lebanon, Iran. By the way, Iran is a very unfriendly country to Ukraine. Actually, the country who support Russia, but they very much want us to sell commodities to them. So they want us to feed them, but instead they supply weapon to kill us. France, Algeria, Kenya, Belgium, Portugal, Greece, Sudan, Pakistan, Vietnam. Here is Lebanon, and that was Libya. I'm sorry. Djibouti, Great Britain, Yemen, Ireland, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Georgia. This is as of 17th of October. Now the harvest. The harvest was paused due to very heavy rainfall in September. Not only harvest, but winter crops planting season was also paused due to this excessive rain in that period. However, 67% of the crops have been harvested, and it resulted in almost 30 million metric tons of grain and leguminous crops harvested. To remind you, at the beginning of the war, we were saying that we still have at least 20-25 million metric tons for the export from our terminals and storage facilities. So right now we have already harvested more than we had before this. The total area is 7.4 million hectares. The total area of that's the area from which these crops were harvested. The total area of Ukrainian agricultural lands is 28 million hectares. Here are the numbers. If you are interested, you can look them through a little later of what was the amount collected and what is the acreage of each of the crops that were harvested. Now we are starting this part, and we will proceed along this structure, each of the biweekly updates. We will speak about the crops by itself individually and describe how the situation this season is changing for each specific crop compared to the previous season. So here we have planted area, thousands hectares, the yield, that's thousands of, actually tons, metric tons per hectare, and the totally harvested volume in thousands of tons. That was in 2021. Let me remind you, this year was one of the most successful years for Ukraine within probably 5 to 7 years. And you can see how the corn acreage was decreased more than 1 million hectares less of corn, which results to be about 18% less in area than previous year. Yield is almost 60-70% from the average yield last year. And the gross harvest, it's still going on, so we cannot tell what it's going to be. However, it's going to be much less. The only thing that will save the situation, probably the leftovers of corn from the previous season, but it's still the question if all the corn is going to be harvested. And that's the matter of economy here, whether it is reasonable to harvest it. Some of the farmers have already started using corn to burn it as the fuel in order to dry other crops or the corn itself. Wheat, you see that this year much less was planted than the previous year, much in the scales, much lesser than corn even. And of course, the yield also dropped, but not that radically, because wheat is a winter crop. And winter crops we are planted and fertilized before the war started. So it saves the situation a little bit. However, a lot of acres just couldn't be harvested because of the war. So you can see how much less were the total numbers. And the total volume resulted in almost half less to what was last year. maybe 40% less. Sunflower, critical crop for Ukraine, the crop that usually was perceived by farmers as the saving hand, because it always was expensive, and in most cases when other crops were going down, the price for it was high, for the reason that we have processing in Ukraine, and 70 facilities throughout Ukraine were buying sunflower. As a result, we were reluctant to export the raw material, but instead we exported the oil and the sunflower meal. So the number of acreage of hectares again was in this year was 20% less. We cannot speak of the yields yet and total gross harvest, because there is a huge problem of the sunflower being rotten in the fields due to these September rains. And right now people are still harvesting. So probably by the next bi-weekly or maybe in a month, we will know for sure. Canola or rapeseed, majority of it, as well as wheat. So are winter crops, winter canola and winter wheat. The planted area was increased a little bit. It's because of the less hectares under other crops and better economy. So we increased it by 10%, the acreage of winter canola right now, and the yield is pretty much the same. The total harvest from the previous crops, from the previous yield, is a little bit higher too. So yeah, that was, I'm sorry, the reason why they planted more are only economical reasons last year, because it was planted in the August of 2021, this acreage, which was harvested in 2022. So there were economical reasons that drove this crop up. Soybeans, crop that majority of Ukrainian farmers say that they still need to learn a lot about how to grow. Our acreage remained a little bit higher, but pretty much the same, because this is the crop that is good for processing. It has some economy, and it's not that huge in volume like corn. So as a result, we had 1,500,000 hectares instead of 13. And it's still being harvested, so it's too early to speak about yield and total harvest. Barley. So in this year, barley was less, almost, you see, 60% from the previous year, 1,600,000 hectares. The yield was not much, but still lesser. And of course, the total gross harvested was less. So unfortunately, in barley, we are also reducing the numbers. Here is the cost of production of corn, for you to understand how much more difficult for farmers it is to produce corn and why they are reluctant to grow it. So this is in dollars per metric ton. I'm sorry, that's in dollars per hectare, most likely. We will post this table and we will check. It's most likely per hectare. So if we are talking about fertilizer, I'm sorry, this is just the volume, the value of the fertilizers by itself. It's not that much of the cost of production, it's just the inputs costs. So the price went almost 110% higher than the year before. Similar things happened with all the other fertilizers, and diesel went much higher than before. As a result, with much lower price of the commodities, we are experiencing the problems with the budgeting. Majority of the farmers say that they are not able to get the break-even point. A little update on the Nibelung company. As I mentioned, one of the some companies, they were focused on export of agricultural commodities, and they have devoted all their forces towards developing this market and this network. However, now they're having huge problems, and Nibelung is probably the first and the most influential, the most famous company in terms of exportation, because this company, first of all, they were the first to open Dnieper River for transportation of agricultural commodities. Secondly, they started building their own ships, tugs, and barges for transportation. And unfortunately, thirdly, on the 31st of July, the CEO, Alexei Vodotursky, CEO and owner of the company, was murdered by Russian missile, which hit just the very part of his house where the bedroom was located. Now, his son, Andriy Vodotursky, has become a chairman of the supervisory board. They ordered the Lazard Bank and Corporation to do the auditing of their financial status in order to be able to apply for restructuring of their loans. The reason is that they cannot sell commodities in the amounts that they need at the prices that they need, and majority of the profit was coming from the sales of the agricultural commodities. However, it is a very Western company that runs by the economical laws, so to say, of the developed countries. And here's what they are doing. They are hiring their reputable corporations to restructurize their debt and to remain in business. As usual, I would like to speak about one of the 25 of Ukrainian oblasts, which is similar to the state in United States of America, just smaller. And now we are going to talk about Zaporizhia. So the population of this oblast is a little less than 2 million people. The total population of Ukraine is 42 or 43, according to different estimations. The area is 27.2 thousand square kilometers. It's 4 and a little less than 5% of the total in Ukraine, which is 600,000 square kilometers. The farmland, they result in 2.2 million hectares, whereas we have 28 million hectares of farmlands in all Ukraine. So, unfortunately, the history of the war has been most cruel to this oblast, probably the third most devastated oblast in Ukraine, excluding the ones that have been in the war before. So Zaporizhia, the occupants, the troops started entering the oblast on the 24th of February, very easily. On the 28th, they entered Energodar, which is the city next to Zaporizhia, the biggest nuclear power station in Europe, Zaporizhia, and they seized it. Since then, they were applying or practicing nuclear terrorism. They have been shooting this station and claiming Ukrainians do it. Then, when the Committee of Nuclear Energy came there, they were making fake stories how they're shooting holes that proved that missiles were coming from the side of Russian troops, how they were twisting around so that it would look like Russians, but in fact it were Ukrainians. So they didn't look smart at all during that visit. Then in September, the fake referendums that were held in 4 Ukrainian regions happened in Zaporizhia as well. However, not all of the oblast is occupied by Russians, and meanwhile, the referendums, they said that all of the oblast now is joining Russia. Of course, it has no law force, no judicial force, because it's against any regulations, laws, and so on. And of course, the people were forced to vote because representatives of the Poles, they came with a soldier holding the guns. And there are a lot of proof to that. Again, there was a number of attacks towards civilians, deliberate attacks. For example, September 30th, when people were trying to escape from that region, they actually not escape, supply humanitarian help to the region, and they were coming from Zaporizhzhia city towards the occupied part. This convoy, or this convoy of the cars was shelled with Russian artillery. And they continue hitting the civilian blocks of Zaporizhzhia. Every night we see a new block of flats destroyed by Russians. Meanwhile, Zaporizhzhia Oblast is, again, as all of Ukrainian oblasts, very important in agricultural production. They have limited rainfall. They have three zones there: steppe zone, which is more of the type of probably Saskatchewan zone, prairie, the arid steppe, which is like mid humidity, and dry steppe, which is very dry area, but very flat and little forests. And of course, a lot of black soils, Chernozems. So as a result, the dominant crops that grow there are sunflower, winter wheat, legumes, and of course, those high-value crops like vegetables, melons, fruit, and berries. So majority of the dryland crops are the ones that do not require a lot of moisture or can be planted over winter. And animals are presented very well in this oblast. We have dairy, we have meat cattle, poultry, and pork, and of course sheep. And all of those animals, the breeding of those animals is also happening in the oblast. So the animal husbandry as of 2021, because right now it is hard to define what are the numbers. So 70,000 heads of total animals was recorded in 2021. So 37,000 of cows. That is the cattle, yeah. Cows, milk, and beef. Pigs, 170,000. Sheep and goat farming, 65,000. By the way, it is probably one of the highest correlations of sheep to the cows and beef. Poultry farming, again, very important, is production of eggs and chicken meat, 3.5 million. For you to understand that the price for eggs right now has risen almost half since the beginning of the war, and the main, even since the couple of last months, for the reason that a couple of very huge agricultural corporations that produced eggs was destroyed by Russians. This is the total production for this area. So again, this oblast is capable of supplying itself with the food and selling something outside. Here are the processing agricultural processing producers, the brands. We have meat production, dairy production, of course, poultry and eggs, fish and seafood, because it has the access to the sea, to the shore. A lot of oils production, so processing of the sunflower, of the soybeans, canola is present there. Production of processing of the grains, which results in flakes, cereals, and pasta flour production, is also present in this oblast. Confectionaries, baking and sweets. Dry fodder, having so many animals, they must have the production of feed. As a result, these crops are being processed locally in order to feed the local animals. sugar production. Sugar production factories is evenly distributed through all the areas in Ukraine, because majority of those areas actually grow sugar beet, and they can supply these factories themselves. And of course, processing of the fruits and berries. Now, the prices for the commodities. As of the comparison with the last biweekly, I have stated here the numbers that remain the same or have changed. So if it is changed, the red number is what has changed. Sunflower went down. They say probably it's because right now everybody is harvesting sunflower, so the price went down from 350 to by 10% to 320 approximately. The price for corn went up a little bit because the grain corridor was more successful. That's the presumably because of that. Barley remained the same, as well as canola, but they don't want to buy it so much. The traders, they are not just they don't buy it in the mid Ukraine, because these are the prices in the central Ukraine. It still needs to be transported. So the price remains the same, but nobody buys it. They buy it only at the port. So for the logistical companies, these two crops right now are not of a big interest. And wheat went down just a little bit less. Soybeans remained the same pretty much. This is the slide that I keep showing to you. It shows how much the logistics per metric ton is worth, which is 38 bushels, is worth to export from these oblasts to our exporting gates from the country. And for example, I was talking with the farmer in this area, and he said that, I'm sorry, that's the Dnipropetrovsk. This is the area. He said that the value of transportation from here, that's as of today, to here, and they need to go like this, is 2,500 hryvnias, which is about $60 per metric ton of transportation of corn. 60. So that's the lowest that they can get. So it is getting better in terms of the prices, but still quite a lot, much more than before the war. 2,500 per metric ton of transportation from here to here. Now, the actual World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine and why we are working with the small family farms. The reason why we have chosen to work with our smallest farms in Ukraine is that they turn out to be less protected, and right now they are left alone. Nobody is targeting any project towards helping these small family farms, but however, they farm about 30% of Ukrainian land, and they produce these huge numbers in the total volume of production of these crops. So I have prepared a number of updates for you, and this is the Allah's house, the lady who I visited first and who we have started to work for first. I mentioned that all their agricultural equipment got burned. So this is how it was developing, and that's the latest photographs. You see, soon the roof will be ready, and they will be able to start the inside decoration. Hopefully, within the months, they will be already working inside. We finished working with Alexander, and right now he is proceeding to do farming. We actually found the tractor for him, and we made a video that resulted in raising $14,000 for him by the third-party company journalist. and so he has money to rebuild one of his barns, and now he has a tractor. And Irina Shevchenko, I would like to show you the video that I made when I visited her farm last weekend, and we need to change the approach to rebuilding because she is in the worst situation here. Let me make sure. So here is the current status of the ex-barn for the animals, the one that was shot by 3 missiles between March 8 and March 12. We are destructing the walls that need to be replaced. The foundation seems to be okay, but there is a problem where to spend the winter. The main house has already proven to be too weak for the winter time because the explosions, they made some holes in the walls and they destructed the windows, so we are able to substitute the windows, but the walls will be too windy. Right now, that's a bit shocking, but right now the Irina, the owner, is sleeping here, but it's when the average temperature is between 40 and 50 Fahrenheit. So let me show you the rest of the windows. This is the other side that is more damaged. You see the plastic part that's like temporarily, and the 3 windows also covered with plastic foil. So we are able to substitute them, but if it is enough for the winter, for the cold winter, that's a question. These explosions were happening in February. After that, they had freezing temperatures, so the heating system inside the house was damaged. It was just frozen. Therefore, the main goal right now is to build this barn and to make it something like a residential facility, along with the kitchen to cook the cheese. And it's going to be a little bit bigger in acreage, in square feet, but we will recalculate so that the owner, Irina, and her daughter have some place to stay over winter, and that needs to be made very fast before the freezing temperatures. So we are here right now working with them on recalculating the value of this construction, and I will get back to the ambassadors with the update on the financial side. I think we can make it. We have enough of the donations, but if you can think of anyone who can support us, because it looks like the budget is going to go up from $7,000 that was initially approved to at least 11 or 12 because of the quality as it is going to be a residential, and because of the size that went bigger. And let me remind you, she has at least 8 cows who survived the bombings. So she produces milk and sells it to the farm, to the local people, and even to Kyiv residents. We, like I mentioned before, we have these windows thanks to Petro Andrushenko that we will install in her, and this milking equipment that will be installed in that barn too. And also she got a fridge to store the milk outside. Unfortunately, right now it's not needed because it's already cold, but still in the in summer months it was used by her. So that is pretty much it as of today. We will proceed working on these 2 aid recipients. If you can think of any place that I could speak, or any groups, communities that I could speak to in order to deliver the information, I would be more than grateful. Also, you can write me to my emails with suggestions. Also, I will be traveling to the United States and speaking at the CropQuest conference in Wichita, Kansas State on November 10th. Also, I was invited to another event via Zoom in December. And I'm open for any proposals, as we are open for the donations to continue to join new aid recipients, because the cities, the villages that I was coming through before I came to Irina and to Allah, I saw a lot of people still in, they have even these signs, if you want to help, please call. And the house is wrecked and nobody lives there. So that is what is happening right now in Ukraine. Thank you for your attention, for your kind hearts, and may God return to all of you the favor that you are sharing with Ukrainians right now. All the best to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask right now. Otherwise, we will proceed. And by the way, yes, one more thing. I wanted to show you a video that is more positive or more optimistic. Yesterday, I went to a farm that is considered to be a research farm. They are researching all sorts of biologization of the soil. So these people, they are right now working on helping the farms survive in the next season. And they are popularizing the methods that help them minimize the application of mineral nutrients and keep the production on the same level. And here's the thing, one of the many things that they have researched, and they have recommendations how to apply it. Suit yourself. This is the technology of usage of exhaust fumes from the tractor in order to promote the nitrogen availability in the soil. So it catches the fumes along with the air. The distance defines the how thick, how much of the fumes is in this mixture. Then it is applied with this deep reaper. Here is the pump, actually the ventilator that is run by the hydraulics, and the speed how it runs is controlled from the cabin, and it defines how much of that mixture is applied into the soil. So it was just the experiment. Now it has proven to be industrially efficient, but you need to apply it along with all sorts of microbiological instruments in the soil, including green manure, cover crops, and biologization, how we call it in Ukraine, of the soil. So if those bacteria are in the soil, they get activated and they promote the availability of nitrogen afterwards. So these are the technologies that are present in Ukraine, and I've talked to this owner of that research farm. He said that they have already developed the program of returning the production of the soils that have been heavily hit by the artillery and all those explosions and all those potholes from the explosions. So they have the program how to fix the soil. Now we need to finish the war, to win the war, and to start rebuilding our soils, our infrastructure, our production, and our life. And that's one of the World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine is one of the steps how to do it. If you have any suggestions of what information would be more interesting for you to listen next bi-weekly or to read, we will be now practicing newsletter and live, depending on the information that we've got, so that you still have the update, but in a convenient form for you. So if you have suggestions, please feel free to contact me. Other than that, thank you very much and enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. Thank you.